Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris.
My name is Justin.
And my name is Mike. Today's episode, we'll be going over what's on our minds in regards to movie news, and then moving into a feature review of Deadpool 2.
Yeah, and if you want to follow along with what we're watching next and let us know what you thought of Deadpool 2, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can join our Facebook group and talk TV and film and other things with us at facebook.com/groups/casualcinecast. Or if you want to email us directly, you can do so at casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
And real quick, we just wanted to make sure we thanked everybody that contributed to the Real Outreach. It reached its goal, and everybody got to go to the movies and see Solo, which we actually will review next week. So thank you guys so much for contributing. Everybody really enjoyed and had a great time.
And next time, we'll push it even harder, and hopefully we can make them outreach their goal as opposed to just reach their goal.
For real. Outreach.com.
Yeah. All right, so are you guys ready to talk about what's on our minds?
Yes.
Okay, so moving into what's on our minds. Chris, do you want to talk first?
Yeah, so I finished a TV show that we talked about 8 weeks ago or so. Justin, you and I watched the first episode. I recently caught up with it. It's Barry, and I'm really glad that I did get to catch up with it because, judging by the first episode, it gets so much better than the first episode, and it's a lot more to it than just that first episode. Barry's about a hitman who has a hit, and he's got a target that he's got to kill, and he wanders into an acting class, and then he decides that he's going to take this acting class, and then hijinks and
low jinks.
Yeah, hijinks and low jinks, and it escalates in very dark and comedic
all
ways.
All jinks in between.
Medium jinx.
The Pokemon jinx. There's a Pokemon
spelled differently.
Jinx. I mean, but it's pronounced the same, right?
That's true.
Anyways, Henry Winkler plays an acting teacher, and he is really good at this part. He's really funny, and he has great comedic timing on it. And he's just a little bit more grounded than he is in shows like Arrested Development. But
right.
Man, he is really hilarious in this.
Yeah, I agree. I actually just finished the entire first season last night, and Henry Winkler is the best part of this show, in my opinion. He is so funny.
Yeah, he's really good. I don't know if he's the best part. I think the best part, or the biggest surprise, is Hader himself. He really shows that he has this acting range that I would have never guessed from him. He's very funny, but at the same time, he goes to some dark places as well. I also really liked Sarah Goldberg, the friend, the actress friend that befriends Barry. I thought that she does a really good job and shows a good side of the Hollywood industry, going to auditions and how rough that can actually be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then the one cool thing is, because we talked about This Is America a couple weeks back and Atlanta, the director, Hiro Murai, I believe is how you pronounce his name, but he directs a couple of episodes of Barry, and that was really...
the best 2 episodes, in my opinion.
Yeah. Episode 7, which the ending of that is just amazing. So what did you think? You just finished it up, right, Mike?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. It does kind of get off to a slow start. I think it never really gets funny, I would say. Not laugh out loud funny, anyway. I think a lot of the humor does fall flat for me, but the story overall I'm still into. And I think Bill Hader, as you said, is great. This is really his time to shine, and I think he's really great, especially when it goes to dramatic and dark places. So, yeah, overall, I would say not really a funny show, but it still succeeds because it's really moody and has a really strong punch, I think, at the end.
Yeah, I found the humor to be fairly dark, so it's not laugh out loud type humor. It's more like gallows humor.
Right, but I don't even think it succeeds in that dark way. I think a lot of it just falls flat. And I don't want to get into it, but I just think that a lot of jokes aren't as good as they could be. But that's okay, because I think, it's not excruciating to get through either. When I say it's not funny, it's not like it's painful to watch,
Yeah, there's more going on, at least I've only seen the first episode, but based on that, there's more going on, that if it's not funny and you're not laughing at it, you can still be entertained and enjoy it, I think.
Right. It's still grounded enough to where it's not just in full comedy mode all the time.
And there are some scenes at the very end where the tension is just ratcheted up to 10.
Absolutely.
They're just so good.
Yeah, and there's some actually moving scenes as well.
Yeah.
And so by no means am I not recommending the show. It's great. It's just I just don't quite think the humor is as strong as it could be. But if the show gets renewed for a season 2, and I'm sure it will.
It already has, actually.
It already has? Great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, I'm still on board.
Another thing that I wanted to catch up on was Young Adult. We watched Tully last week, and then I wanted to catch up with Young Adult because I hadn't ever seen it. You guys recommended it very highly, and I loved Tully. I thought Tully was really great. Young Adult's about a late 30s YA author whose old flame has a baby, and she decides that she's going to go back and liberate him from his mundane life back in the town that they grew up in. I thought this movie was really great. Charlize Theron is really good in this. She's a really great actress. I already had high esteem for her, but with the Tully and Young Adult, I really like Charlize Theron. But the one person that really stood out for me in Young Adult was Patton Oswalt. I thought that he was amazing in this movie. He's a character that's very similar to Charlize Theron, but in different ways, and he just does a really great job. And I didn't know that he had that range in him either. Yeah, so I thought it was really great. What did you guys think?
Well, as we talked about during our Tully episode, we both loved it. I'll not put words in your mouth, but for me, I loved it. I thought it was great. It's my favorite Jason Reitman movie. I think as I come down off of Tully, I still prefer Young Adult. I think it's still my favorite, even though Tully's a pretty close second. And I agree, Patton Oswalt is awesome in it. He's really good in that. And if you want to see more of like his acting chops, he was in this movie called Big Fan, where he plays like this diehard sports fan who like his passion is calling into this radio talk show and giving like thought out, well-written diatribes and like bitch about the local sports team, And
I'll have to check that out for sure.
Yeah, it's good. Like, he lives with his mom, so he's kind of like, it's kind of a dramedy with like a heavy focus on drama. But
yeah,
anyways,
absolutely. Like his whole identity is being a fan of that team.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, and another example of Patton Oswalt being great.
Yeah, but I'll go ahead and hop in here and bring it back to Young Adult and say that I absolutely agree with Chris. Patton Oswalt is great in this movie. It's my favorite thing that I've seen him in, including Big Fan, although Big Fan is still really worth your time if you're a fan of Patton Oswalt. But Charlize Theron is so great in Young Adult, and I think this is the first movie by Diablo Cody that I really liked. I think Tully and Young Adult are still kind of battling it out in my mind for which one I prefer, but it's really close, and I think they're both really strong movies. So if you like Young Adult, check out Tully. If you like Tully, check out Young Adult.
Absolutely. I watched it on Amazon, I believe. I believe it's available on Amazon Prime.
Charlize Theron is so good. I actually tweeted this out on the Casual Cinecast Twitter the other day, but I was saying that like between Tully, Young Adult, and Mad Max Fury Road, she's become one of the most interesting actresses working today, and I'm really excited to see her play Megyn Kelly in the new movie coming out about Roger Ailes and Fox News.
That should be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. I'm holding out hope that she shows up in Arrested Development season 5.
Oh, yeah.
That would be awesome.
So awesome. So that's what I've been watching. What have you been watching lately, Justin?
Yeah, so I've been very, very, very busy lately. As like view behind the curtain, I work as a wedding videographer, and it's like full-on wedding season. So most like my weekend time to watch things is limited lately. So the only thing I really got around to watching was revisiting The 40-Year-Old Virgin with Steve Carell, because my girlfriend had never seen it.
Never heard of it.
It's about a guy who is 40 years old, but also a virgin.
Wait, have you really not heard of it?
No, I'm joking.
Huh.
Good joke. Classic.
I don't know. There's some stuff in 40-Year-Old Virgin that joke was funnier than. I'll tell you that much. But for real, I watched it on Netflix, and this was the first time I've seen the original theatrical cut, which is the version that's on Netflix, since I saw it in theaters, I think. And the version I've had forever because I bought it on DVD when it came out, was like the unrated version, which I think is something like 20 or 30 minutes longer.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and it kind of fell into like that Apatow thing where like his movies always seem like they're like 30 or 40 minutes too long, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was kind of nice to go back to like the theatrical version, which I think is like an hour 40, like kind of your typical comedy length. And I think the movie it's weird because it's kind of like the first time that we went to Steve Carell as like a leading man. And it's interesting to watch the things that he's like the leading man in now and like later, and go back to that movie because I think he is funny at times, but like he doesn't quite carry the movie. I don't know. You guys have probably seen it, right? I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you guys think of the movie, and when was the last time you watched it?
It's been a while for me. I remember really enjoying the movie, and enjoying Steve Carell in that role. But I'm not familiar enough, and it's been so long. I can't really identify your complaints necessarily.
I haven't seen it since theaters. I wasn't a big fan of it at the time, and I haven't revisited it since. I've liked every Judd Apatow movie that's come out since then more than that one. So I would be curious to go back and see that one to see if I like it more or less or the same. But yeah, I like Knocked Up quite a bit. Funny People, I think, is decent but needs to be trimmed down. Kind of like what you were saying, all his movies are a little too long. 40-Year-Old Virgin, I remember being a lot sillier than the rest of his movies. And I don't know. That's all I really remember about it. But I remember not being a huge fan, but I remember everyone else loving it at the time.
It's interesting to go watch like a shorter Judd Apatow movie where I think maybe before he was given like free reign, but you're right. It's way more cartoonish and a lot more in line with some of the like Farrelly Brothers type comedy as opposed to the Judd Apatow type. That's like kind of rooted in being like very truthful and honest portrayals of things.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like
not that.
Yeah, it feels like he definitely matured as he got older.
Yeah, and it's interesting to go back to watch Steve Carell, who I think was coming off of maybe like the first season of The Office and being kind of a breakout star from Anchorman, and then being the lead in this movie versus if you watch something like Seeking a Friend for the End of the World or I guess Crazy Stupid Love was another one that comes to mind where he's like more like the leading man.
Right.
Like he's definitely learned to carry a movie, I think, like as opposed to how he is in 40-Year-Old Virgin, which I think gets kind of uninteresting at times. But I found it interesting to go back and watch after like kind of knowing Steve Carell as being like a successful leading man now.
Yeah, go back to see how we all kind of started to accept him in that role as a leading man.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of all I had to say about it. And that's all I've watched. So we can move on to you, Mike.
All right. So I watched a movie called Revenge this week, which is on video on demand on Amazon. And it's directed by Coralie Fargate? I'm not quite sure. But it had a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I thought I'd check it out. Have you guys heard of this movie at all?
I have not.
I have. It was playing at the Alamo Drafthouse here. I think actually it's still playing, which is crazy that it's at the video, or it's on VOD.
Yeah, I'll be right back. I'm going to go see it. Guys, hold on.
All right, Justin's back, guys. What'd you think of the movie?
I don't know. I didn't go see it. I lied.
Liar.
Damn it. We waited all that time.
Yeah. I just went and had gelato.
It's just a gelato break.
All right. Anyways, Revenge. It had a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. As you can guess, it is a revenge tale about a girl who flies out to this secluded area with her rich married boyfriend. But then their getaway starts to go wrong when his buddies show up early for their annual hunting trip. It's very interesting to actually watch this movie because it's a revenge story told from the perspective of a woman. It was written and directed by a woman, Coralie. I don't know. Anyway, the director is a woman.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Names are hard sometimes.
Yes,
People
they
got
are
some
hard.
Names.
But
we can't all be named Mike Johnson.
So, yeah, since it's directed by a woman, a lot of the things that would normally, I think, be considered male gazy or maybe misogynistic, this movie gets away with. And I've seen a lot of people actually praise this as a feminist movie. And I don't necessarily think I got that from it. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a feminist movie, but I would say it is really interesting to see the same movie you've seen a million times from a different perspective, you know?
Yeah, does it feel different from You Were Never Really Here, which was also a revenge story directed by a woman?
Yeah, it feels very different. I would say this is more of a traditional revenge. Like, fans of Tarantino would like this.
More pulpy.
Yeah, it's a lot more pulpy.
I guess I mean, like, as far as like the feminine or feminism side of the movie, did that, like, how do those compare in terms of that?
You Were Never Really Here, I think, was directed by a woman, but it's still about a man, right? This movie is about from like the woman's point of view, you know?
Oh, okay.
So you are actually seeing her abuse and then her journey to get revenge on those that wronged her. And it's pretty cool. The whole movie is one of those where there's only like 5 people in the entire cast. So it's in a very limited, small area. And so everyone's kind of stuck together, you know? And I really appreciate movies like that because it feels like a very isolated story. And I don't know, it's easy to get into movies like that. It feels kind of like The Thing or Ex Machina, not necessarily in tone or anything or content, but just movies that take place in small, secluded areas with a finite number of people, you know?
Right.
I know, I really appreciate those kinds of stories. I get into them. And this movie scratched that itch. So, yeah, cool. I would check it out. It's certainly well filmed, very over the top, but I don't know. It's pretty interesting and pretty cool. I'd give it a shot.
Awesome.
The other thing I thought we should talk about real quick before moving into our review of Deadpool, the Cannes Film Festival was this past week. So I thought we'd talk about some of the more interesting movies that we thought looked intriguing. I don't want to go through all of them by any means, because that would take far longer than I want to spend, or that would be interesting.
That sounds like an entire episode maybe, and
indeed,
we're not doing that one.
Yeah. So anyway, the first one I wanted to talk about was the new Lars von Trier film. Have you guys heard of this?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I heard of it, and I heard that there was controversy around it, but I have no idea what it's about, and I haven't seen the trailer or anything.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that there is a trailer yet.
Well,
I thought there was. I thought I saw a trailer somewhere on Facebook.
Oh, there is? Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's a trailer for it. I watched it. It's called The House That Jack Built, starring Matt Dillon and Uma Thurman. And it's about a serial killer. And apparently it outraged a lot of people and spurred a lot of walkouts and boos and things. And they all played right into his hands because Lars von Trier loves that kind of thing. So, you know, good job, audience at Cannes.
Yeah, it's like people should really take to like at a film festival as big as this, and with a film like Lars von Trier, if they really want to like walk out and show their disgust. And I assume they walk out because they hate it and probably would not recommend it to people. Like they should just like go to sleep in their chair and then wait for the movie to be over and like not applaud, right?
Yeah, or boo.
Because you're just giving publicity to it and like making people want to see it now.
Exactly.
Even more, right?
Exactly. You can get on Twitter and look at some of the tweets from some of the journalists that are quite dramatic. They're saying that, you know, I guess in this movie, I won't give away anything, but it's a lot of very upsetting stuff. And people took to Twitter and said that it's gross and vile and the actors are culpable for being in it and yada, yada, yada. So all of that just only succeeded in making the movie all the more famous and ensuring that so many more people want to see it than they otherwise would have, you know?
Yeah, and I'm sure it's coming from the people that walked out, so they didn't even finish the movie, so they don't necessarily have a full idea of what the movie is.
Sure. But they also could be pretty familiar with Lars von Trier, though.
That's true.
Yeah, you should know. If you're covering the Cannes Film Festival, I'm sure you know enough about Lars von Trier. I don't know. It has to be pretty shocking, and I can't imagine that it's as shocking.
I feel like
to surprise me,
right,
considering it's Lars von Trier.
I feel like people showed up to it and knew they were going to walk out. This is me reading into it, but they knew they were going to walk out of it before they even walked in, right?
I think,
because it was Lars von Trier.
Right. Well, I think also once they realized what the movie was, and essentially what it sounds like is this movie's like just a huge middle finger to the critics who kicked him out 7 years ago for his Nazi comments, right? So it almost seems like I'm going to make you watch this thing that I know you're going to hate, right? Like in the trailer, there's even like this narration from Matt Dillon that's something like, while he's murdering all these people, he says something to the effect of like, some people say that when you make fiction, the things that you write down are just like your own dreams that you are too afraid to live out or something like that. And then he says like he doesn't agree and yada, yada, yada. So I think the whole thing is like this really antagonistic approach to coming back to the festival that has people mad, probably more than the movie itself. But then again, I don't know. This is all just speculation because none of us have actually seen the movie, right?
Right. He's like the original troll, Lars von Trier.
Yeah,
he says a lot of stuff.
Exactly. I think he just showed up with the intention of antagonizing. It's like a sorry, not sorry moment.
Yeah.
Good. I would expect no less from him.
Yeah. It seems like a pretty Lars von Trier thing to do.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen any of his movies before, check out Dogville. Check out Antichrist. Check out Breaking the Waves, Dancer in the Dark. These are all crazy movies. Some, I think, land better than others. I think The Nymphomaniac was pretty lame. Not very good. Badly written, badly made. But I think he's made some really interesting stuff over the years.
Absolutely.
For sure. So what else was it, Ken?
One of the ones I've been interested in watching that's come out of Cannes is Burning. It's got Stephen Yeun in it, who is in The Walking Dead, and it's directed by Chang Dong Lee. It's a South Korean film that I'm really looking forward to. I don't know much about it other than the director and the star, and some reviews I've read, and it's supposed to be really good.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that one too. I'm really excited to see that one. Hopefully we'll see some of these soon.
Yeah, I had a friend from film school that went to Cannes. He actually teaches where I went to film school, and they've actually started like this program where they send like 4 or 5 students over to like hang out at the Cannes Film Festival, which is pretty cool. It's like a Maymester sort of thing that they do. And so he went over there and he said that he saw the John Gotti movie that John Travolta is in, and supposedly it's truly, truly exceptionally bad.
I believe it.
Like almost unwatchably. So I'm kind of, I don't know. He made it sound really like entertainingly bad. I don't know if it is or not.
Oh, it's just called Gotti.
Kevin Connolly from Entourage directed it.
But he said it was like, I guess supposedly been like funded by the Gotti family or, some crime family that's connected with the Gottis. And he said that like, it was really clear that like most of the audience in the theater was like part of that crime family.
Oh, wow.
And they were all there. And so he said it was like, really weird.
Man, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have much more to say about it than that, but he made me want to watch it, weirdly enough.
Yeah, seeing that Kevin Connolly directed it does not give me a lot of hope. He could be a great director, but all I know him from is Entourage.
The thing he cited as like one of the things that was like really bad about it is like they would introduce a character and his name would be like Jimmy the Chin, and they'd be like, "This is Jimmy the Chin," and it would start with like a close up on his chin, and then it would pull back, and then there would be text that said Jimmy the Chin. So like really like. I don't know what you want to call it. I guess like over obvious filmmaking and
feels like
overdoing it basically.
Someone who thought Snatch was really cool.
Yeah, it's just like they're no faith in the audience. Let's drive home. We really need you to know this guy is Jimmy the Chin. Yeah, that's all I have about that.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about these movies. There's several other movies. We'll go ahead and link to some of them in the show notes. But what do you say we move on to Deadpool 2?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Let's go.
Oh, I shit my pants.
Actually, that may have been me.
Oh, you're living the dreams, DP.
Yeah.
Devil may care attitude. Beautiful girlfriend.
Sorry I'm late. I was rounding up all the gluten in the world and launching into space where it can't not hurt us ever again.
Kiss me like you miss me, Red.
So before we get going, we just wanted to remind everybody that we will do a non-spoiler section of the review first. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can still listen ahead and hear what we think about it, and we'll give you plenty of warning and a spoiler alert before we actually start spoiling the film.
Indeed. So Deadpool 2, directed by David Leitch, who directed Atomic Blonde, starring Ryan Reynolds and Josh Brolin. The IMDb synopsis says, foul-mouthed mutant mercenary Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, brings together a team of fellow mutant rogues to protect a young boy of supernatural abilities from brutal, time-traveling mutant Cable.
Yeah, A plus IMDb this time, I think.
Yeah, one of their stronger synopsi.
Yeah, for sure. It's more than one. No, it's all one. I was going to say it's more than one sentence this time, but it's actually all just one really long sentence.
But a well-crafted one.
Yes, plenty of commas and positives.
Yeah, wasn't hard to read at all.
All right, so do you guys want to start out by talking about our thoughts on the first Deadpool?
Yeah, sure.
And then also maybe expectations for this one?
Sure.
So who wants to go first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first. I missed the first one in the theaters, and I just watched the first one like the week before I watched the second one. I do really love the story behind Deadpool and the making of it. I think that's a really great story about him being in Wolverine, and then it took him 10 years to get the movie made, and a horrible adaptation of his character in Wolverine. It's just, and I love that they can use that as a joke in the movies. The first Deadpool movie is really enjoyable. I really like Ryan Reynolds' charisma in the first one, and as he plays Deadpool, I think he's really good.
This character kind of fits his personality better than a lot of characters do, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. They kind of do the thing where they just throw as many jokes at you, and they just see what sticks. And I enjoy that. Some of them land for me, some of them don't. But yeah, I enjoyed the first one, and along that lines, as my expectations for the second one, I don't need a second movie, but I was interested to see where it would go from there, right? And so that's kind of where I landed on it. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm kind of similar to you. I've never read any of the comics. I've only seen that Wolverine origin spinoff and that first Deadpool. I hated the Wolverine spinoff, and I thought Deadpool was fine. It had some laughs, but overall it's a very simple, low budget for a superhero movie kind of movie. I haven't really thought about it at all since I saw it in theaters until the second one came out, right? I wasn't looking forward or not looking forward to the second one either way. I was curious to see if they could pull off another Deadpool movie, because I think that character inherently isn't as interesting as like a serious character. So I was more curious about Deadpool 2 than I would say I was anticipating it. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. What about you, Justin?
I think I'm a little more negative on the first Deadpool than you guys, and I agree that Ryan Reynolds is a really great fit for it. I think it kind of feels like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, where it just makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
And he's working really well. Everything he's doing, I think, works for what they're trying to go for. The issue that I had with the first Deadpool is that it's kind of making fun of the comic book superhero movie, which I thought that I would enjoy a little bit more. I think some of the jokes are hit or miss. There's a lot of attempts at them, like you said, Chris, but the issue for me is that they're making fun of the movie, but at the same time, they're also doing a lot of the things that they're making fun of. So I felt a little bit like they were like talking about how dumb like a love story is in a superhero movie, while also showing me a love story. So I kind of found it a little bit dumb, you know, and I think there was a real opportunity to do something different and take a chance with like the story, as opposed to just kind of give us the same old thing, but try to make it okay and different just by making fun of it at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think, and it probably goes for Deadpool too, but I think the reason you go to see the movie isn't necessarily like because of the plot or to see them parodying themselves, but it's just for the jokes. And like, I think as long as those work for you, you're going to enjoy the movie. If they don't work, then it's not going to work for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. I just felt like there's an opportunity to do more, to like rise above.
Makes sense.
Or not even necessarily rise above. That makes it sound like be better than, but just to do something totally off the wall and different. And I think the first one kind of disappointed me because they didn't do enough different for me. They just made fun of the same old thing while also doing the same old thing, in my opinion. So I kind of looked forward to Deadpool 2 in the sense that I'm still holding out hope that they were going to do something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, yeah. So you guys ready to move into what we thought?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the things I said about the first one still apply here. If you don't like the humor, it's just not going to work for you, I don't think. I do like some of the additions to this movie. I like the X-Force, and I like Cable, or I like certain aspects of Cable. I like the aspect of Cable playing the straight man to Ryan Reynolds, goofy character. I think that really works. I do have some issues with the movie that we can get into later in the spoilers. But back to the X-Force, Zazie Beetz. I liked the Domino character quite a bit. I thought Zazie Beetz did a really good job portraying that character. So I think ultimately, if you like the first one, this is more of the same. There are some good additions, but once again, they throw a lot of jokes at you, and some of them hit, some of them don't. And so I think if you like the first one, go see it. But ultimately, it's a rental for me, I think. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, so I think this is probably a better made movie than the first one, but it is much, much too long. That drags it down a good bit for me. I think this movie I think this movie tries to go too serious with Deadpool in a couple parts to little success. And I think the tone and message of the movie is a total mess. But I can't deny that I did laugh a few times, despite my occasional annoyance, right? Mm-hmm. And also my audience did seem to love it. I agree with you. I enjoyed what we got from like the non-fourth wall breaking characters like Cable and Zazie Beetz and some of the other X-Force. I wish we would have gotten more from them, I feel like maybe less Deadpool and more of the group would have made for a stronger movie, only because Deadpool himself is not a serious enough character to handle some of what they try to have him shoulder in this movie. What about you, Justin?
I'm not too far off from where I was on the first Deadpool. I agree with you in the sense that I think they tried to be more serious. It seemed like they tried to make, I don't want to say like deeper points than the other Deadpool movies.
Because they definitely doubled down on the goofiness, right? But
yeah. It's hard to say too, because and I think this is kind of what you were alluding to, Mike, but tonally it's very odd because they are doing these like very serious, dark messages, right. But then you have what to me feels like very infantile humor in the movie at different points, like in the midst of all of that. And they kind of clash with each other. And I can't really fully get into one more than the other. And that being said, I think because I finally, because of this podcast, started watching a lot more of the Marvel movies, because when the first one came out, I hadn't watched a ton of them lately. And I guess I was kind of deep into my dislike of them, and I've watched more now. So I feel like maybe I was a bit more in on the jokes this time with Deadpool 2. So I did laugh. I found some things funny. I think the biggest thing for me is that, again, I don't think they did anything super unique as far as making a superhero movie goes. Everything felt kind of average and expected and uninspired to me.
I agree with you.
As far as the action superhero-y stuff goes.
I agree with you, but at the same time, it's miles better than what the first one's action was, while still being completely underwhelming.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That may be, yeah, that may be true. I barely remember the first one in terms of the action, to be honest. So
they're working with a lot more of a budget here.
I just think maybe it's filmed better and done better, but as far as the actual action set pieces, I couldn't have been more bored during them. And I think a bigger issue that I have is we kind of get into what I call the Superman territory of a superhero, where Deadpool can't die. And therefore, when he's in an action sequence, it's not very interesting to me because there's no stakes in it.
Well, I mean, to that, where I would push back, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think that's problem maybe in general with superhero movies, but like Mike and I both like Spider-Man, for instance, but I don't think ever in that movie was I worried that Spider-Man was going to die. There were stakes in other places, which I think there are in this film as well, but maybe you don't feel those stakes as much as you do in some of the other films. I just, very rarely am I watching a superhero movie where I think that the hero is going to die.
Sure, but very rarely is the power constantly reminding you that he can't die, right? Like the healing factor.
Yeah.
Like that's what kind of
Even if,
makes some of the Wolverine movies less interesting than they could be. I mean, this movie does an okay job because they try to find a device plot-wise that can help, remove those powers on and off, and we can get more into that later.
Yeah.
But there are times where they try to fix that issue, but I don't know if they ever succeed in doing that,
I just think that, for me personally, the stakes were somewhere else in this movie and not necessarily on whether or not Wade Wilson is going to die.
Right.
And that's just for me.
Well, here's what I would say, and I'll let you continue, Justin. I'm sorry. I would say this movie works best when it's not trying to show me any stakes at all. Like when it's just silly comedy. When it's like whenever it tries to present stakes for anything, that's when I'm checked out because I don't view Deadpool as a serious character and I don't want to spend any amount of time in a Deadpool movie being serious. Unless it's with a different character who's capable of, carrying some dramatic weight, which I don't think Deadpool is. He's funny, but that's all he is, and that's all he needs to do.
Yeah, that's where I come down. I agree too, and I understand too what you're saying, Chris. That like in none of these movies is anybody really ever going to die, but like even like a 0.05% chance that like. Some character could die, or even like them being capable of being killed. But like you said, Mike, in this one, they're constantly reminding you, like he is incapable of dying. He will not die. It does not matter what happens to him, and they remind you of that 4, 5, 6 times throughout the movie. At least,
the beginning of the movie is him committing suicide, but not for real.
Yeah, which that whole beginning, like the whole credit sequence, is built around that joke of like, I can't believe he killed himself already at the beginning of the movie, but that just like it doesn't work because he's not dead and he can't die. It just doesn't. It's weird. It's a weird character to balance, and I don't blame them for not getting it right. But I think I agree with you, Mike. It needs to just be like funny, goofy. Let's just have a straight up good time.
Keep it 80 minutes in and out. That's what I say.
Or I think maybe if you made Deadpool a secondary character, like if he is a secondary character to Cable trying to get his thing done, and Deadpool's just making jokes and cracking wise, then that's a good fit for him maybe. But anyways, I think maybe we should get into spoilers and dive into that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so overall, Chris recommended renting it. I would do the same. I would not bother going to the theaters to see this movie. It doesn't need any more of your money. Yeah,
I would say rent it in terms of like the movie quality, but I will say that the theater and audience around me like enjoying the movie was part of what makes the movie more watchable. I think I feel like if I'm sitting alone watching it, or even watching it with like one other person, that's like I guess in a way like a 50-50 chance that they're not going to like it. And then you're just both sitting there miserable with no one who likes it. And it's just going to make it a worse experience.
That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Cool. All right. So let's boil some stuff.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
I'll tell you what. Give me one cigarette you got up there. I'll tell you all about it. And here we go.
So I want to kick it off by talking about one of my least favorite parts of the movie, and a part I would say I hated, and I tried to talk about this earlier without being spoilery, so now I can fully spoil it. But there's really weird humor with things like where he gets ripped in half and then he has like baby legs and like is naked from like the waist down as a baby. Like I feel like that humor just feels so like antithetical to like some of the more serious stuff that they're doing. Like I think they just went too far. You know what I mean? Like it seems unbalanced to me. What did you guys think of that part of the movie?
I didn't dislike it that much. I think there's a version of that joke that works for me, where like everyone comes into his apartment where he's sitting there and is disturbed by what they're looking at, but less focus on the actual like effect itself as a visual gag, you know? I like the idea, because like they touched on it in the first one where his hand was growing back, so we know this is part of Deadpool and what happens when he regenerates, so it's a good callback to the first one. I think it just went on much too long, and I couldn't stop thinking of the Rick and Morty joke about Detective Baby Legs who gets a partner, regular legs, and he doesn't want the regular legged partner. And I just kept thinking of Rick and Morty, so it worked for me then. It didn't work for me as much in Deadpool 2, but I don't think I hated it as much as you did.
And that's kind of the problem with the whole movie, right? It like the humor doesn't necessarily mash with the other half of it. That's the serious part of it, the drama part of it. And I think you're right. It just runs throughout the whole movie.
We'll see.
It feels like something I would have laughed at like pretty hard when I was like 8. It just feels out of place to me in the rest of the movie.
I don't know that it feels out of place because the rest of the movie's pretty ridiculous. If anything, I would say the more serious stuff is what seems out of place to me.
Sure.
And since we're in spoilers
I think they
now,
play off of each other.
I think I could say like, I know he later in the after credit scenes, which we'll talk about later, all this is retconned, but the whole bit where, the girlfriend gets shot and then we have to go through his sadness and then he goes to like this weird afterlife that he can't get to her and he's blocked by like a force field. None of that worked for me at all.
No.
No.
It just felt like using a girl character like they did in the first one, but like they wanted to like, what's that term?
Fridging. They fridged her.
Where they fridged the character, and then I don't know. It's like they use this. She's basically her character only ever exists for any reason to motivate Deadpool. In the first one, it was to get her back, and this one is to avenge her. And then they'll need her to use as a motivation again in the third one, so they just bring her back.
Yeah, and she's a talented actress, and along with Justin says, they could give her a great character. Like she's a great actress, and so she's very talented. She can do more than just be this motivation.
Yeah, make her part of the X-Force.
Yeah, I mean, anything. It's just very simple and not very well. Like Deadpool himself says, very lazy writing.
Yeah, and that's another weird example of like they're telling me that something's bad and lazy, and they're doing it at the same time. So what am I supposed to think?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you, Mike. That character's wasted. The actress is.
Yeah. Do you think it's that they're doing it wrong and being lazy about it, or do you think that it's just like it doesn't work because like you're going to be like really hard pressed to care about things in a Deadpool movie like that?
No, I think I would be upset if this happened like in a completely straight drama movie. Like if there's a character that exists solely to motivate the male character, I think ultimately that character just doesn't work because that's all she's there for, and you see it coming a mile away.
Well, the first time it's not so bad. Like many movies use characters that way, right? There are so many characters that die to motivate another character. It's a classic staple of drama. But what I would say is that if you do it in the first one, and that's the only thing that character exists for, and that's some of the criticisms that came out of the first one, and I remember those criticisms, and you don't fix it, you just double down on that in the second one. But instead, they do it in a worse way because they kill her for most of the movie, then to bring her back later, so that way, in between, they don't have to do anything with her. They can just literally keep her out of the story altogether and still bring her back, right? So it'd be different if she stayed dead and they had to do something else next time, but to just kill her and bring her back only to probably use her again later, it just feels so manipulative, and that in itself feels lazy to me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about her character one way or the other, but it's almost worse whenever it's so obvious what they're doing with her.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would agree.
Yeah, but that being said, I want to switch gears to a more positive note. The whole X-Force scene where he hires them and they go on their mission, that whole sequence I thought was great.
Yeah, that was by far my favorite part of the movie, and where I found myself just really like enjoying what was going on.
Oh yeah, for a good like 20-minute, 30-minute sequence right in the middle of the movie. It is just a pure joy. And my audience was in stitches. I was laughing despite, my earlier annoyance at some of the tone stuff. I still had a good time with a lot of this movie, and it clearly worked for everyone else in my audience. So
yeah, I definitely agree. The X-Force part is my favorite. Zazie Beetz is really good, and I love the character of Domino. I'm glad that she sticks around. I love watching the luck happen to her. I think that's really fun to do. And that's probably some of the most fun in the action sequences, right?
Yeah, I agree. That whole sequence was really fun. Like there's a crash sequence and you just see her like slow motion flying towards a big inflatable like panda or something like that, like knowing she's going to land just fine. And like she never seems worried that she won't.
Yeah, she just has complete faith in her luck.
Yeah.
And then I like the argument that her and Deadpool have. And his argument is, but it's not cinematic. I think it's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And going off of that, I will say that, like, I was a little disappointed that they kill everybody off from that group, like, so quickly. Like, I understand the humor value of it. And it wasn't like entirely not working for me. But going back to what I was saying about them doing something different with the Deadpool movie, I thought we were about to get like this group of people with like a really lame character. What was the one character's name? Like Shatterstar,
right?
Or something that was kind of like the weird.
They all had pretty lame names, like the
Vanisher looking one. Yeah, like the Vanishing. I thought we were going to get just like this weird troupe and like had a lot more humor built out of their characters and have their characters do things, each based on what they offer, and especially the guy that doesn't have a superpower that's just like, I saw the ad and it looked real cool. Like I really was looking forward to getting more out of that guy and seeing what was going to happen. So I was a little disappointed that they all just died and we didn't get an opportunity to get more humor out of there. I feel like it's kind of just let me down a little bit.
I would agree, except I know those characters are all going to be coming back in the X-Force movie that we'll inevitably get.
Or at least the guy without powers.
Oh,
is that a real thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's.
Oh, because he saves them at the end, right?
Yeah, the time travel thing, the cable device.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of an immediate disappointment.
It's an immediate disappointment, but I think there's jokes still yet to come with those characters. And Zazie Beetz is a huge hit from this movie. And Terry Crews, I think, will have a huge part because that guy, the internet loves Terry Crews. So,
do you think that they'll do something with Brad Pitt as like the invisible?
I hope so. Why not?
Person, Brad Pitt, and actually have him in the movie, or is it just going to be an invisible character and like build as Brad Pitt or something like that, which is funny.
Yeah, either way, it works for me. The actual cameo itself made me laugh. One of the jokes that really landed for me was whenever Cable's like shooting directly at Deadpool and he's like trying to slice the bullets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one.
I don't remember the punchline.
It was in the trailer. So Cable's shooting at him, and there's this really slow motion sequence, and Deadpool knocks the bullet away, the first bullet, with his sword, and then Cable starts shooting a lot more, and then you see in a wide shot that Deadpool's just like what looks like knocking them all away, and then it cuts back to in front of him, and he's got all these holes in his body, and he's like, yeah, bullets are really fast.
Yeah, and he just got shot like a bunch of times.
Yeah. And then the other thing I guess I would say too that I really enjoyed and disappointed, like the X-Force sequence, but like the last third of the movie when Cable is hanging out with Deadpool, that was what I really enjoyed, was Cable being the straight man to Deadpool. I thought that really worked together.
Yeah,
worked well together.
Yeah, I liked that, and I also liked just the turn of Cable where it ends up that they're working together. Mm-hmm. And there's actually like what he is there and trying to do is all for good. Like I enjoyed that. That felt more interesting than anything else as far as like the serious stuff in the movie goes.
Absolutely. And I think whether they go with a Deadpool 3 or an X-Force movie next, I think it would benefit the movie to split it more evenly between Josh Brolin and Ryan Reynolds instead of having Ryan Reynolds' character try to carry this entire franchise. Like, they tried to set him up to carry the franchise. They tried to set him up to be like the Tony Stark of this universe, you know? There's that afterlife sequence with his girlfriend where she's like, they're going to need you soon. They'll need you to basically like be in charge of them all and keep them together kind of thing. That's what I took from it, right? And that doesn't work for me.
Yeah, Deadpool's most successful when he's trying to be tamed by the Colossus guy. Was that his name? Like the big shiny guy?
Yeah, so you
like
need
it works best when he's trying to be like brought into the X-Men and be tamed and become like part of a team, but he just wants to like cut up and do his own thing. So yeah, him as a leader doesn't feel like it'll work. Like if they want to try it, I'll watch it.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
But I think Deadpool is going to work best playing off of Cable or Colossus, something like that. I think that works a whole lot better. One thing I thought was actually pretty smart and pretty clever and a good joke in this movie was how he comments again how none of the cool X-Men are there to like be in his movie, and then it cuts to like the other door and there's so many like cooler X-Men on the other side of the door that are just like hiding from him.
Yeah, I think I saw Beast, and I think was James McAvoy in there?
Yeah, Quicksilver.
Yeah.
But it's all like the First Class era people, so the timeline doesn't make sense. So it even messes up the X-Men movies even more timeline wise.
They don't need any help doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't care.
Yeah,
at
much
this
about
point,
what Deadpool is doing.
Did you guys notice the other cameo by Alan Tudyk and Matt Damon?
I didn't notice it while I was watching. I had no idea, but I've since read what it is.
And Matt Damon is credited as Dickie Greenleaf. It's a talented Mr. Ripley reference.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Matt Damon's starting a second career as just cameoing in Marvel movies. Is cameoing a word?
It can be.
Yeah,
if you say it
just
hard enough and with enough belief, it's a word.
He's cameoing. Cameoing.
Nope, it's not a word now because
Okay,
you messed it up.
God damn it.
One thing, since we're talking about like really specific moments, something that kind of bothered me or kind of annoyed me is that they did the upside down shot that they've done in like the last several Marvel movies where like the scene starts and everything is upside down and the camera slowly spins, making everything right side up. And
I don't remember that in this movie.
Yeah.
It happens, and I don't remember where specifically, but I think it's like towards the end where like the kid is back at the I don't know what it was, like child asylum thing, and there's this shot where the camera like that goes from upside down to right side up. And
Are you sure that you weren't sitting upside down in your chair and then
you
you
weren't falling asleep and then catching yourself and correcting yourself?
I mean, I guess I'm not, but I don't know. That seems less likely. I'll say that much, but I don't know. It was weird because it happened in this movie, but the same shot happens in Infinity War. The same shot happens in Black Panther. I can't remember if it happens in Doctor Strange. I don't think it does, and I haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming to see if they did it there, but it's like 3 Marvel movies in a row. They do the same shot, and I feel like
Deadpool barely counts as a Marvel movie.
But it is one.
Even if it's barely one. Made by different people, though.
So anything that comes from Marvel, they'll slap their label on it, but it's made by a completely different company. It's not made by the Marvel cinema.
Right, it's made by the people who do the X-Men movies.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying. It's a similar shot, and you're tired of it.
That's right. Do something different, damn it.
I agree. One thing, before we wrap up the review about Deadpool, we haven't talked at all about the kid character, Russell, and his relationship
was that
with
his name?
Deadpool. I think that's his name. That sounds right to me.
It sounds right, but I don't even remember.
Right. Well, the actor is the same kid who was in Hunt for the Wilder People. I think he's a charming actor, but that character did not work for me. The idea of it did. It felt a lot like Looper, but like comedic. But
right.
I don't understand why Deadpool cared about the kid. It feels like I don't quite understand Deadpool's character and if he's a good guy, a mean guy, or a nice guy. It seems like and a lot of his humor a lot of times is mean, but then he cares a lot about certain things. And one thing that really bothered me about that particular storyline was they make such a big deal about how they don't want this kid to go down the wrong path about murdering and killing, only to have every other character murder and kill all the time. Even in the last act, they make a big deal about that kid not killing the main villain, only to have that villain be killed 3 minutes later by another character in the form of a joke. And I understand that the reason is because those characters aren't going to grow up to be evil mutants in the future. But from a moral standpoint and like from a lesson standpoint, who learned what?
Yep, I agree 100%. That's like all I could think about when it came to like that part of the story was that like this seems just kind of hypocritical in a sense from Deadpool.
Well, it's the two sides of the story not meshing, right? So they make a joke out of something, and then they're trying to be serious about it, and they don't mesh, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if I remember correctly, this movie starts out with him like getting revenge, and the whole first movie was him getting revenge.
Yeah,
so.
but he's got a sense of humor about it, so he doesn't turn evil.
Yeah, I guess that kid was too serious. If he had made more wisecracks.
Yeah, should have.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember if anything the kid did actually like I enjoyed. I can't think of anything. I enjoyed the fact that he called like his butt like a prison wallet or something like that whenever he like hid the thing in it. But that anybody could have said that and that would have made me laugh because I just think that's a funny term.
The actor himself is funny. Have you seen Hunt for the Wilder People?
I haven't.
Well, actually, you know what? I recommend it to everyone except for Justin because it is a Taika Waititi movie.
Oh, yeah.
Steer
clear of it, Justin.
Yeah, that guy's, I guess 0 for 2, maybe 0 for 3. I don't remember how many of his movies I've seen.
Yeah, and to that effect about the child, Deadpool at first hates him, like, and doesn't want anything to do with him, and then he comes back around, and it's only when it's convenient for the story, right, that Deadpool cares about him, or, it just doesn't quite work.
Well, sure. Right. I mean, Deadpool's an overall good guy, but I'm just saying his personality seems hard to peg in these movies because I don't ever know if he's going to be like mean humor or nice humor.
Yeah.
Or, completely serious because he loves his girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to it because I think I just agree with you, 110%.
Yeah. So are we done? Are we done with Deadpool 2?
Until Deadpool 3 comes out.
And we have to go back and be like, what did we think about the first two Deadpool movies? And then we have to,
we'll just cut this out and put it in there.
Yeah.
Rehash this.
If you liked Deadpool and you think if any of us missed a point and there's some kind of like underlying really smart point that you want to make, by all means, please send it to us. I would love to view something I'm not seeing in this movie because I know a lot of people love this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seemed like most people do, at least based on like my theater experience.
Absolutely.
Like if I can take that as a sample size and extrapolate it to the world.
Yeah. And I don't hate it.
A lot of people love this movie.
Yeah.
And maybe Deadpool's best when you don't think about it. Like you walk in, you laugh at the jokes, and then you walk out and never think about it again.
Yeah, I think doing a podcast about it did not help.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we actually had to like really think and dissect stuff or like
right.
Try to figure out what we didn't like about it.
Yeah, I didn't do a podcast about the first Deadpool, and then it wasn't until I started thinking about it that I was like, maybe that movie doesn't hold up as well as I thought.
Yeah.
So it's worth a sit, but not much more. It has some good laughs, though.
Yeah, I laughed enough to not like regret going to see it.
Yeah, so definitely see it, but I would wait for home, unless you get the thrill out of having the audience around you, in which case, go for it. The audiences seem to be loving it.
Yeah, my movie pass helped me come to terms with it. That like I didn't spend money technically. I mean, technically I did, but I've already spent the money, so it was sort of free.
You spent like $250 if you go see your 4 movies this month.
All right, so let's move into our final question. And playing off of Deadpool, what is you guys' favorite movie that breaks the fourth wall? Mike, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm going to go with a 2005 movie written and directed by Shane Black, starring Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer, called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Have you guys heard of this movie?
I've heard of it. I've seen it. I've seen it again, and I love it.
Yeah.
I'm right there with Justin.
Yeah, it's absolutely delightful. It's a private eye mystery comedy. Robert Downey Jr., pre-Iron Man, but post-90s drug downfall. Right before the comeback. One of the last really good Val Kilmer performances I've seen. He is so funny as Gay Perry, the private eye. I think probably some of those like gay jokes that they make in the movie probably don't age very well. But I remember at the time, I thought it was pretty funny, and hopefully, those things still hold up and aren't too looking back on it,
I don't think they are. I watched it a couple of years ago, and I feel like most of the humor built around the gay character is him making fun of Robert Downey Jr. and making him feel like an idiot.
Yeah, he's definitely the superior character, and it's but it definitely just feels like a very immature kind of brand of humor that I think the rest of the movie is more above that, in retrospect, I guess.
Yeah, maybe so. I guess I just feel like it's never like a gay person or being gay. It never feels like the butt of the joke.
No, it's no more harmful than I guess a lot of sitcom humor, but it does define his whole character, you know? So
sure.
I just wanted to say, if I'm going to recommend it, I wanted to caveat by saying I haven't seen it in a while, but I don't think there's anything too offensive.
No.
And none of it comes from a malicious place, I don't think. And I think it still holds up, and Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer are great. Shane Black's dialogue is very smart, very witty, and it makes me excited to see, hopefully, him do something cool with the Predator franchise later this year.
Cool. Well, I'll go next.
Yay.
And go with my favorite movie that breaks the fourth wall, and that is going to be SLC Punk. I don't know who the director is because he didn't really do anything else. I don't know off the top of my head, and I don't particularly care to look it up. Because he didn't do much else. I think he eventually made SLC Punk too, but who saw that?
Not me.
Yeah, that silence is my answer. Yeah. But yeah, so it stars Matthew Lillard and
Devin Sawa.
Jason Segel. Yeah, Jason Segel and Devin Sawa. And it's kind of it's Jason Segel before he was a big deal. Like, so it's interesting. It's interesting to watch, but it's the story of
and Devin Sawa after he was a big deal.
That's true. Post Junior Floyd, Little Giants, Devin Sawa.
Casper.
Post all that. But it's the story of two punks in the 80s living in Salt Lake City. And they're basically trying to come to terms as like the punk movement's dying out, and they're realizing they can't just live their life being like anarchists and punk rock and do anything. They realize that like, you know, slowly, like maybe they need to go to school or get jobs, and like what are they doing by being anarchists? And it's a super funny movie at times and a super moving movie at times, and it's just this interesting view of the world. I guess like kind of like we were talking about with Sid and Nancy, is that like it feels like someone who really cares about the punk scene makes the movie. There's like a lot of love for it, despite some stuff where it's questioning the validity of the punk scene. You know, have you guys seen this?
Oh yeah. Plenty of times whenever I was a young lad.
I actually haven't seen this yet. I need to.
You should totally watch it. I know you're not that into punk music. Like I discovered the movie because I was super into punk.
If you like Sid and Nancy, I think it would stand to reason that you would probably like SLC Punk quite a bit.
Yeah, it'd probably pair up really well with it.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would like go to the movie store and rent like Sid and Nancy and SLC Punk and watch them back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know. Go on.
I think the problems that Sid and Nancy have don't show up in SLC Punk because it's a completely fictitious story.
Right.
And specifically the breaking the fourth wall thing, Matthew Lillard has all of these rants about punk rock and punk life and punk culture where he talks to the camera and like goes on these rants, and they're all really fun to me. I think they're all very cool.
And the whole movie feels like a very smart essay. It's like when it's over, you felt like you've seen someone really grow up and really learn something about the world and about humans, you know, and coming of age. And I agree with Justin. I think, you know, it probably has less viewership than it otherwise would have because it came out in a time, you know, it was indie movie, and Matthew Lillard wasn't and still isn't a very well known or well received actor. So if you want to see Matthew Lillard do something great, check out his performance in this movie. It makes it a shame, really, that he didn't, you know, go a different direction in his career, because the guy was talented, or is talented.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a couple of shining moments in his career that are really good. Yeah. You're right.
I think this is one of them, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is maybe his brightest shining moment. Well, I was going to say that my love for him in this movie is the only reason I ever watched either of the Scooby-Doo movies. It's because I was like, Matthew Lillard, I like him.
He does actually do a really good impression of Shaggy. However, the movies aren't that great.
No. All right, so Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, my pick for favorite movie that breaks the fourth wall is Funny Games. I watched Funny Games when I first started getting into movies. Like, it was one of the very first subtitled movies that I watched, and I just kind of randomly picked it off the shelf at Blockbuster, but when I was working there.
So what is Funny Games for people who don't know?
Funny Games is about a home invasion, and about 15 minutes into the movie, as they begin to invade said home, they turn to the camera and they tell you what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. And lots of weird things start happening along the lines of breaking the fourth wall. It's a really devastating film, I think. There's some really crazy things that happen in it, that like a moment where you're so happy and you're cheering, and then maybe they take that moment back. Stuff like that. Anyways, this movie really kind of ushered me into film and helped me on my, like, the beginning part of that journey of film, along with like Train Spotting and stuff like that.
Right.
I really enjoyed this movie.
I didn't,
or not enjoyed. That's not the right word. I didn't enjoy it, but I
Admire
really
it?
enjoyed the challenge of this film.
Yeah, I remember when the remake came out in 2007 from the same director with Tim Roth and Naomi Watts, the American remake. I remember
Yeah, we actually saw that together.
Yeah, and I remember it actually kind of made me look at violence in movies a different way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's kind of part of what that movie's trying to say is, you know, if you're seeing it and you're enjoying it, are you complicit in it? You know?
Right.
So, it's Haneke is an interesting director.
Yeah, I forgot to say that it was directed by Michael Haneke.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Check out any of his movies. They're all unconventional.
And challenging and really rewarding through that challenge.
Yeah, I think this is a really good example of like breaking the fourth wall, where it can be like super fun, like it is in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang or SLC Punk. But this one is what you're saying, Mike, where like if you're watching the movie, you're kind of a part of it, and then breaking the fourth wall and inviting you in. You're with them. You're with like the home invaders, right?
You're part of their group.
Yeah, much like in like Ferris Bueller, when he breaks the fourth wall, he's inviting you to come along.
You're a delinquent,
with his
just
day.
like Ferris.
Yeah,
that's a little bit more fun.
Obviously that one's more fun, but like in the same way, you're coming along with them and they're guiding you. So you're right there with them. You're a part of it. Does that make you better than them?
Right.
You know, it does make you think.
Is there a part in that movie where they say, well, if you want to stop this, you can stop this at any time. You just have to turn off the movie? Did they say something along those lines in the movie?
That sounds right, but I haven't.
Yeah.
I have not seen Funny Games in quite some time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen it since the remake came out in theaters, and I never saw the original version, even though I hear that I don't necessarily need to because they're exactly the same.
And they're directed by the same person.
Yeah.
Very,
the American
very
remake is better looking.
Yeah, and we haven't mentioned it, but the American remake has Michael Pitt and Brady Corbet as like the home invaders, and both of those guys are two guys that I really love that don't do like big starring leading type roles, you know, and I think they're also really great in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. So as always, thank you for listening. Thank you, Jake Wagner Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
And join us next week. The next movie we'll be doing will be Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yep, I'm excited. I think I'm going to go see it very soon after we finish recording.
Yeah, I'm going to go see it in 2 hours from now.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you want to ask us any questions about Solo, a Star Wars story, or if you want to let us know what you think about it and want us to talk about a topic that you find interesting about it, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can join our Facebook group and talk film and TV with us at facebook.com/groups/Casual Cinecast. Or if you want to email us directly, you can do so at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And please go ahead and review us on iTunes. Go ahead and give us like a 5-star review. It helps grow the show. It helps people find the podcast, and we can get, you know, those listener questions and listener interaction that I think will just make the show better.
Also, it would help to have some feedback. Constructive, of course, preferably.
Yes. Not destructive.
Not destructive criticism.
Yeah. Instructive is good. It's kind of like constructive.
Yeah. Some kind of structive. Please. Yeah. As always, thanks so much, guys, for listening. We always enjoy it. And until next time, I'll see you.
Bye-bye.
See you later.